Hi, I'm YuriMendes. Today I want to talk to you about the educational merits of video games. It is no secret that playing video games for extensive hours a day, just out of control, is not good for your children. But did you know that when played moderately and appropriately, video games can actually be very good for your children? They can even make them smarter? Well, I created this little presentation that I believe will answer some of your questions, so please keep watching. Before starting with these slides, I want to clarify that this presentation is not meant to hide the fact that video games can potentially have negative effects on children. However, the focus of it is on showing parents that video games can also have very positive effects on children and help them develop skills that they will use for the rest of their lives. All you need to do is learn how to take advantage of that. Reasoning is important. So, the first thing many parents need to do is stop making the assumption that video games are bad and stopping their children from playing them just based on that assumption. Before deciding whether or not you will let your children play video games, take a few minutes to evaluate the video game in question and what it can do for the children. The benefits are there. I think it is important to do that because not doing so is just as bad as not being involved in your child's development and interests at all, even if it stems from care and protection. So, be involved. Check out the video games your children want to play instead of just saying yes or no. Take advantage of the situation and have fun with your children. At the end, everybody can benefit from playing video games as long as it is done appropriately. Okay, so what are the positive effects of video games? Well, let's start with some examples of benefits that represent the educational merits of video games. These are considered an exercise for the brain. According to research done under supervision of cognitive scientist Daphne Bavelier of the University of Rochester, games that simulate stressful situations can be a training tool for real-world events. The study defends that action video games force the brain to make quick decisions. Further, the study says that video games can even be used to train soldiers and surgeons. When children start playing video games, they push themselves further to read better, so they can, for example, understand the instructions, follow the storylines of the games, and even get information from the game text while playing. Additionally, they push themselves to learn math skills to win in many games involving quantitative analysis. In those levels of games that are more complex and challenging, players usually fail the first time around, or even multiple times. By trying to succeed and move on to the next level, children learn to persevere, and even when the problem seems to have no solution and the circumstances seem too difficult to overcome, they keep on trying. Science education professor James Paul Gee of the University of Wisconsin-Madison explains that playing a video game is very similar to solve a science problem. The person playing the game must come up with hypotheses just like students at a science lab do. As an example, in certain games, the player needs to try out combinations of powers to use to defeat the enemy. Whenever the combination doesn't work, he needs to come up with a new combination or hypothesis and keep testing it. The Appalachia Educational Laboratory conducted a study that revealed that the game called Dance Revolution can help children with attention deficit disorder to concentrate. And certain games, such as Roller Coaster Tycoon, in which players must manage an amusement park's resources, can be a great tool to teach children to make management decisions involve effective use of finite resources. So, we just saw some examples of benefits video games can bring in terms of education, but that's not all. Other benefits of video games include those considered practice for social and professional life. I personally think that's an appropriate category because video games, when used appropriately, can introduce children to high technology. They can also give children an opportunity to bond with friends and family members while playing a game together. They help children find that conquering a challenge can be not only possible but also fun. They can help children develop decision-making skills. They can boost children's self-confidence. And they teach children how to work in teams and collaborate. So I have been telling you that you must use video games appropriately, and you must be wondering what it means. Well, here are some recommendations on how to appropriately use video games to take advantage of their benefits. You should always monitor your children's video gaming habits, just like you do when they watch TV or go play outside the house. It is also recommended that you give the children other options to develop their skills. The fact that video games do have positive effects in that area does not mean children should play video games for hours a day. In that sense, establish time limits. Don't just let your children play for as long as they want. There are so many other interesting and fun things to do. Keep an eye out for changes in your children's behavior since they started playing video games. That is one good way to evaluate whether or not games are beneficial in your household. And limit the game activity when necessary. For example, if your children start behaving violently after playing games, if they display signs of addiction to playing them, or if they start neglecting other activities, such as homework. Moving on, what should you look for to help ensure your children take full advantage of the positive effects of video games? The first thing you need to do is define the limits, meaning what is acceptable and what is not, in terms of video game selection, playing time, frequency, etc. Then, when you buy your children video games, make sure to check its ratings and reviews online. Keep in mind, other parents probably have purchased that same video game for their children and they may have posted a review for other parents to see. Observe your children's level of maturity and evaluate whether or not the particular video game would match it. Check the game goals and objectives to see if they will give your children the opportunity to develop skills necessary outside the game. See if the particular game has a team play mode so your children can play with their friends as a team. Robert Butterworth of Los Angeles, California, has a PhD in psychotherapy, and he explains that it is important to evaluate the games in terms of mental engagement required to play them, so your children can be engaged in a healthy and positive way while playing. Now, one very interesting discovery. A study conducted by the Berlin's Max Planck Institute for Human Development and St. Hedwig Hospital shows that people among all participants who played Super Mario 64 for 30 minutes a day over the period of 2 months presented a significant increase of gray matter in the right prefrontal cortex, the right hippocampus, and the cerebellum, which are essential for strategic planning, spatial navigation, working memory, and motor performance. So to wrap up our presentation, here's a summary of what we have seen. We talked about how important it is to use reasoning when deciding whether or not to let your children play games. We saw a few examples of positive effects of video games. We went a little further and reviewed some other benefits of video games besides those that can improve education. We saw a few recommendations for best practices when it comes to taking full advantage of the gaming experience. We saw a few things to look for when selecting video games for your children. And we saw that a study done by reputable entities in Germany proved that people who play video games over a period of time have improved memory due to increase of gray matter in their areas of the brain that are key to memory. To learn more about raising smart kids, please visit www.raisesmartkid.com. I hope you enjoyed the little presentation I created for you, and I especially hope it answered some of your questions regarding how to appropriately use video games to take full advantage of their educational merits. And here's a challenge for you. After you watch this video, I challenge you to go to a toy store and buy your children a video game based on the guidelines that you just learned in this video. I'm pretty sure your children will appreciate that. My name is YuriMendes. Thank you for watching.